Welcome to the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Wednesday, June 14th. This is Gina McGuire. Over the next week, we will see increasing temperatures, with very hot temperatures this weekend into early next week, and these temperatures will be near record-breaking. We will also see the fuels dry a lot more rapidly due to these very hot temperatures and dry conditions, especially across the southern two-thirds of the Great Basin. Thunderstorms will start returning as early as Saturday to the higher terrain of the Sierra into parts of Nevada and Utah, and these thunderstorm chances will increase as we go into Sunday and next week and also spread further north. Therefore, we could see some increases to fire potential after this hot period once lightning returns. Over the last 24 hours, we've only seen light showers across southeast Idaho into Wyoming with no lightning reported. Over the last 7 days, the precipitation has been confined to the northern half of the Great Basin, and the precipitation across Idaho has been abnormally high for what we would normally see this time of year. Over the last 30 days, you can see the image on the right shows below normal precipitation in most areas, with the exception of parts of southern and eastern Utah and possibly small portions of Idaho. If we look at the current fuel conditions, 10-hour fuel moisture has increased quite a bit over the northern third of the Great Basin with the cool, wet weather we just saw move through the area. However, still remains very low over the southern third of the Great Basin due to continued dry conditions, despite some cooling with temperatures. Looking at live fuel moisture, we have likely seen our peak across the area with respect to sagebrush live fuel moisture, and this will continue to decrease, especially with the increasing temperatures we'll see for the next week. The satellite loop from this morning shows generally clear skies across the western U.S., at least across the Great Basin. The area of low pressure that brought us very cold temperatures and wet conditions has now moved well to the northeast. However, we do have another area of low pressure well off the northwest coast that will move eastward and generally affect Idaho into Wyoming, with dry conditions continuing for the next several days across Nevada, Utah, and the Arizona Strip. Looking at the weather pattern later today, we have flat ridging moving across the Great Basin with that strong low now far to the northeast. We will continue with low fire potential in the north and low to moderate fire potential in the south. As we look at RHs today, we'll be on the low single digits over the southern third of the Great Basin and much higher as you get north into Idaho and Wyoming. However, also we will see a little bit of breezy winds over parts of Idaho into Wyoming, but for the most part, typical light to moderate winds across the rest of the Great Basin. As we move into Thursday, we start to see the initial effects of that system moving into the northwest, with increased clouds and some showers across parts of Idaho, but still much drier conditions further south. And fire potential will change little through tomorrow. Relative humidity remains very low over now the southern half of the Great Basin, and a little bit higher in advance of that system into Idaho and Wyoming. However, winds will be on the increase over the northern third of the Great Basin as that system approaches, with wind gusts generally between 25 and 30 miles per hour. However, again, this will be accompanied by that higher relative humidity across Idaho and Wyoming. The only area that may see a combination of some gusty winds with lower RH will be in northern Nevada. However, right now winds look less than critical. On Friday, we see more moisture move into the north and still continue dry in the south, with low fire potential and low to moderate continuing over the southern third of the Great Basin. Relative humidity still remains low in the south and increases above now 40% across Idaho, with still some continued gusty winds over the northern third of the area. Looking at the overall forecast amount of precipitation over the next 3 days, any appreciable precipitation will be focused over the central Idaho mountains and the higher terrain of Wyoming, with no rainfall further south. Temperatures will really be the big story over the next week and will gradually increase over the next few days, but will become very hot as we go through the weekend and into next week as we see a much stronger ridge of high pressure develop and push north across the western U.S. Very dry conditions are expected on Saturday with hot temperatures and low to moderate fire potential now expanding a little bit further north. We also may see a few isolated thunderstorms on Saturday over parts of Wyoming or far northeast Utah, and maybe a few buildups in the Sierra. However, for the most part, we'll see generally dry conditions. As we move into Sunday, we see that ridge really start to build across the west, and we will have some mid-level moisture in place, especially in the Sierra and extending further east into central Nevada and possibly the higher elevations of central Utah for some isolated thunderstorms to develop. These thunderstorms, after following a warm and dry period, especially as hot as temperatures will be, and fuels will be changing critically during that time, we could see some increased fire potential. However, right now, coverage is the main question and exact areas where thunderstorms will be. Therefore, we are not issuing any high risk at this time for Nevada or Utah. As we move into Monday and the ridge really starts to take shape, very strong ridge in place over the west with very hot temperatures near record breaking and also enough moisture for better chances of lightning stretching from the Sierra eastward across Nevada and Utah. We will continue to see that fire potential increase to moderate over much of Nevada and Utah, and we may even see some high risks for lightning as we get into the Sunday, Monday period. However, again, right now we're a little too far out to narrow down exactly where that lightning will occur. On Tuesday, the ridge starts to push a little bit further eastward, so still good chances of at least some isolated to widely scattered lightning over the Sierra eastward across Nevada and Utah again, and possibly even further north. Looking at overall amounts of precipitation over the next 7 days, and really anything you see across Idaho and Wyoming is what's going to be occurring over the next few days. So even with those thunderstorms that are expected to start developing as we get into the weekend and next week, we're not really expecting much rainfall with them at this time. Therefore, we will continue to monitor that situation with the very hot temperatures and rapidly changing fuels for any high risks. Looking at the 8 to 14 day outlook, which takes us into the end of June, still hot temperatures and below normal precipitation expected, especially drier conditions in the north eventually later in the month, and warmer conditions further south. That concludes our briefing for today. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us. Thank you for listening.